Thanks for attending. So today we are going to have a quick overview on how to deploy vCenter HA using vSphere APIs. So before I move on to agenda, I would like to just introduce myself. I am Vikas. I am part of VMware India R&D, where I work on product vCenter server, obviously. And in my free time, I run one technical blog that is vthinkbeyondvm.com, where my focus is on vSphere APIs using Python, Java, and PowerCLI. So let's start. So this is my agenda. So first, I will be just briefing about what is vCenter HA all about. Then since this topic is focused on vSphere APIs, I thought it's good to spend some time on vSphere API basics. Then we'll take a look at how to get started with the PyVMOMI, which is a Python binding for vSphere SDKs. And as a part of demonstrating vCenter HA, we will take a look at one of the sample example. And finally, I will run you through some of the useful resources. So let's start with what is vCenter HA. vCenter HA, without doubt, one of the highlights of vSphere 6.5, and it is further enhanced in vSphere 6.7, and it is only available through VCSA. Now when it comes to the architecture of vCenter HA, you could see that there are three nodes: active node, passive node, and the witness node. Active node will be up and running. Passive node will come into picture in case the active node gets failed, and the witness node provides the services of quorum. So since the focus of this talk is on vSphere API, so I will avoid talking much into deep dive into the architecture of vCenter HA itself. So let's move on to understanding basics of vSphere API basics. So whatever basics I am going to talk about right now is applicable to any vSphere API binding, nothing too directly related with the vCenter HA itself. So in this, there are three building blocks of vSphere APIs. First one is a managed object, second is a data object, and third one is a methods. So let's take an example. There are two types of managed objects. First type example is a virtual machine, and the object, the core inventory object, is a first type of object. Similarly, we have host system, which is again a core vCenter inventory object. The data object is an object that provides data information about the managed object. So in our example, virtual machine is a managed object, and virtual machine config info, this object gives more information about managed object, so it's a data object. And then methods are nothing but the operations associated with the managed objects. So for example, relocate VM is one of the operations associated with the virtual machine. Similarly, for host system, when it comes to method, enter maintenance mode is one of the examples when it comes to the method associated with the host system. So that is one type of managed object. Another type of managed object is nothing but the object that provides services to the system. In our case, system is a vCenter server. Let's take an example of vCenter HA itself. vCenter HA, as we know, is a service, HA service provided to the vCenter. So there are a couple of objects exposed as a part of vCenter HA. Those are providing services to the vCenter. So that kind of objects are called as type 2 managed objects. So first one is a FailoverCluster Manager. That managed object is responsible for managing and monitoring the vCenter HA. And the second one is a FailoverCluster Configurator, which is responsible for deploying, configuring the vCenter HA. Similar to type 1, the data object meaning remains same. The vCHA cluster health gives more information about the health of the vCenter HA. And the get vCHA cluster health is one of the methods. Same follows for the second as well. So now, how to traverse the vSphere API reference? So based on what we talked about, three building blocks, that is managed object, data object, and methods. Let's take an example. Like there is a use case, you want to create a snapshot of the virtual machine. Now how to go about traversing through this vSphere API reference. vSphere API reference is nothing but documentation about the APIs. Those are available through vSphere. In case of creating a virtual machine, now you can imagine that this is operation, creating a virtual machine. So the VM is what it is associated with. So then you can refer that virtual machine is the managed object. So you can go ahead and click on the managed objects, the first link, and then you will get the drop down. Here you can search for the virtual machine, and you will get all the data, all the properties, and the methods exposed by virtual machine. And there you can find that there will be one method called as create virtual machine snapshot. Similarly, you can search for the other methods associated with the virtual machine. Same goes with vCenter HA as well. Now, if you want to find, let's say I want to deploy vCHA, then as I talked about couple of managed objects, so you have to go ahead and search in managed object. Once you get the hold of a managed object, then you can directly refer to the methods associated with that. So this is the second item. If we want to take our understanding of vSphere APIs to the next level, managed object also should be a very close friend. A managed object browser is nothing but the live representation of your vSphere environment. So how to access is, you have to just give the ESX IP or the vCenter IP followed by /mob. It will ask you to enter the credentials. As soon as you enter, this is the first page you get. And in that you can see that service instance is the topmost object. So once we get the hold of service instance object, you get the access to the entire vSphere environment. And you can see there are multiple properties exposed by service instance, such as content. The content provides information about managed object, that is service instance, so we can refer back whatever we talked. And once we have content, content has all the managed objects available in vSphere. And the methods, I just wanted to highlight that these are the methods associated with the managed object, that is service instance. And one example is a current time. If you want to get current time on the vCenter, you can invoke that method. So once I click on the content, if you see that all managed objects are listed here, and if you see here, last two, the highlighted ones are the managed objects with respect to vCenter HA. So again, same FailoverCluster Manager is.
Village will be closing in 5 minutes.
FailoverCluster Manager is one of the managed objects which is responsible for monitoring and managing the vCenter HA, and these are the methods exposed by that managed object. So in my example, I am going to use the get vCHA cluster health is one of the examples. And this is the second managed object. And you can see that multiple methods are exposed by this method, and this managed object is responsible for deploying and configuring, preparing the vCenter HA. So let's talk about how to get started with the PyVMOMI. PyVMOMI can be installed on any operating system. What you need is a Python installed. Once you install the Python, probably you'll get the latest version of pip based on the version of the OS that you have installed. And if you are installing PyVMOMI on the Windows, you have to just run one command. This is the command. And on Linux, you can just run the same command on the Linux. So you can see very quickly you can set the PyVMOMI environment. Once the environment is set, now let's go ahead and talk about the example. So this is the web client screenshot where it showcases us that what is the health of the vCenter HA from the web client. And the same thing now we are going to do using PyVMOMI with respect to vSphere APIs. Now based on this, you can recognize that there are two managed objects, and one of the managed object was responsible for managing and monitoring the vCenter HA. So based on that, you can go ahead and search for that and what methods are available. And in that, let's move on to the code. So FailoverCluster Manager is the managed object which is responsible for managing and monitoring, and health comes under monitoring. So first 3 lines are about importing the required packages. Then couple of lines for credentials. Then we are creating a SSL in order to establish the connection with the vCenter server. And then we have a smart connect method. which is responsible to establish the connection with the vCenter. There we are passing vCenter IP, username, password, and the SSL context. And this method returns us one object that is a service instance. And that is the object I talked about, is the topmost object in the vSphere. And once we have hold of that, we can get a hold of any managed object in vSphere. So accordingly, in the second last line, vCHA equal to, so I'm using the SI object, and then I'm going to the property called as content, and content had all the managed objects as a properties. And in this case, since we are looking for getting the health of the cluster, so FailoverCluster Manager is a managed object, so we have to get hold of that object first, since that object is required to call these methods. So in the last line, we are just calling the get vCHA cluster health, and this returns one object, and that object is a vCHA cluster health. Now we can just see this is the API reference again. Whatever is returned by the previous call, the last line, vCHA cluster health. So this is the documentation about that, and this object has three properties. First one is additional information, health messages, and the runtime info. Now on the next screen, we can see that when I run this screen, and I have printed all these three properties. The first one is additional information, and you can see that it's empty. The reason it is empty is my cluster is right now up and running and there are no issues. If there are some issues, then additional information property will give you more details about what is going wrong. The vCHA health messages, these are the exact same messages are being displayed on the web client screenshot, because web client internally uses the same APIs in order to pull this information. And runtime info gives us a lot of details like cluster mode is enabled, then the cluster state is healthy, up and running, and there is some information about vCHA node information, active, passive, and witness. It says that okay, everything is up and running with respect to these IP addresses. So you can see that this is pretty much very easy to get hold of vCenter HA health using PYMOMI. So these are some of the useful resources.
Ladies and gentlemen, VM Village is now
First resource
closed.
is about my own blog,
Wait to the
where
nearest exit.
I have talked about deploying vCenter HA using PYMOMI.
VM Village is now closed.
Second is
Please
about
make your
how
way
to
the
manage it.
nearest exit. Thank you.
The third link, vCenter HA Power CLI module. In Power CLI, if you prefer Power CLI, there are no out-of-the-box commandlets available for this. This is a community model written by none other William Lamb. So you can refer his blog in order to deal with vCenter HA using Power CLI. And these are a couple of links how to get started with PYMOMI on Linux and Windows OS. And in the end, if you have any queries and doubts, you can reach out to my Twitter handle, WeThinkBeyond VM, and you can get in touch with me on my website as well. And the same slides I will be uploading on my blog as well. So that's it from my side, and if you have any queries, we can talk about it.
Get the service instance. Are you connecting with which IP? Active node IP or passive node IP?
Active.
How do you know how we can know that which is active or which is passive before connecting to that?
Okay.
User intelligence or because in general
Passive node, the management network connected to the passive node will be down when the active node is up and running. Passive node will be up only when there is a failure happens. So you're connecting, the interface connecting is an active node. So you're connecting to the active node.
yeah, it's fine. So that is a failure happened at if the passive node is up and running. How this particular code is working?
Yeah, as soon as your active node is down, and then the new active node is a passive node now. So in order to fetch this, the same IP address will work, because the same IP address is configured on the passive as well. It is just that network is down since active node is up and running. So it is going to work.
Yeah, it is like cluster IP.
Yes,
It's a common IP.
common IP.
Like in general cluster configurations, we have a IP for cluster.
Yes, true.
Same kind of thing.
It's true. Okay, thank you very much.